It's supposed to feel.
Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to Starbucks. I'm your host, Anthony DiNardo. With me, we got Jim Rosati. Jim, happy Monday. Happy Monday before Christmas.
Happy Monday before Christmas. Yes.
You know what that means.
What does that mean?
Six more days of Brian Reynolds on the team.
God. Yeah. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that nothing happens like this holiday season. I don't think we're gonna do much this next weekend.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a calm holiday season.
I mean, I don't know, man. Ben Cherington's making a slew of moves. I mean, the Pirates just added 2 more players this weekend. You know, he's leading up to Brian Reynolds. Big trade on
Yeah, not leading up to Brian Reynolds at all.
No. All right.
Yeah.
We got 2 major moves to talk about this morning because the Pirates did find their catcher. They listened to you talk to Alex Stump. They said, hey, Jim's pissed off. He wants to know if anyone's going to catch this year. So the Pirates went out and they signed Austin Hedges to a 1-year, $5 million deal. And they said, you know, we're not done yet. And they also went and traded for Connor Joe. So that's what we got to talk about this morning, Jim. So again, I don't know what you're talking about. It's going to be quiet. There's not going to anything to happen this Christmas morning because Ben Cherington is active.
He's certainly active. Like he's doing things. But it's about, I guess, as far as the activity goes. Like he's like, you know, if you're at work and like your boss walks by your office and you're just like pretending like you're doing stuff, but it's not really like you're not really working. You're clicking around on your screen.
So you mean like when you have Fangraphs up and you're looking and you peek and you're like, oh, there he is, and you go onto like your homepage on your website.
That's what Ben Cherington's doing right now. He's doing a lot of work. Just none of it's has anything to do with really improving the team at all or being productive in any way. He's just doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it with these 2 moves because they're moves, and not that I necessarily hate either. And I say that cautiously in the sense that I understand why they're there, why they're done.
Yeah.
It's not as if like it's terrible. It's just that it doesn't really do much. And after the 2022 season, you kind of expected, and again, after the words that came out of Ben Cherington's mouth, you kind of expected something to move the needle a little bit, right? To get a little bit better, not just by, well, we just can't possibly be this bad, so therefore we won't be that bad. You kind of thought maybe we're not going to be this bad because we're going to, as he said, focus on the major league team. These 2 trades don't, or I guess 1 trade and 1 signing, like don't really do that for me.
No. So, I mean, let's kind of start with Hedges, right? I mean, clearly, you know, the team needed to sign a catcher. Whether or not they actually have Endy Rodriguez start opening day, which isn't going to happen. But even if Endy Rodriguez was going to be the opening day starting catcher, like they still needed to add a catcher, right?
Right.
So
he is the only one on the 40-man.
Yes. So they did that. They added a catcher. They added a veteran catcher, a pretty good defensive catcher too. The one issue is that, yeah, he's a good defensive catcher, DiNardo, but he is the worst hitter in Major League Baseball and has been for about 4 years. And like that's not exaggerating. That's not saying, oh, he's really bad. No, he's the worst hitter
Just basically read your tweet to us.
in Major League Baseball over the last 4 years. He has not eclipsed a 50 weighted runs created plus since 2018. And I'm like 50, like 50. Like we remember like Kevin Newman's terrible season. Kevin Newman has never been as bad of a hitter as Austin Hedges.
Austin Hedges has a career 54 weighted run created plus. Let's put it there.
Yeah, just a pure terrible hitter. So, I mean, he's a guy to sit back there behind the home plate, and he will look competent behind there. But once you put him at the once he bats, it's not good. Yeah. So, I mean, he ranks 37th among 37 catchers in weighted runs created plus. He actually, if you go a little bit deeper than that, there are, let me find my tweet. So, and since 2019, 426 players have accumulated 500 plate appearances. 426 players have done it. He ranks 426th among those players. Dead last in weighted runs created plus since 2019. So we're talking about a bad hitter.
So, and that's why, so offensively, here's like I want to compare it to, right? Because we don't understand why this person was on the team. It was just awful. And Josh Van Meter, right? He's the GOAT of the opposite. He's the escape goat. He's the wrong goat of 2022 season, right? He had a 59 weighted runs created plus. Like last year, Josh Van Meter for the Pirates batted 187, on base 266, and slugged 292. Good for a 59 weighted runs created plus. Austin Hedges last year, 163, on base 241, slug 248, good for a weighted runs created plus of 42. So, I mean, that's a huge drop off. That's not even like, okay, so he's about Josh Van Meter level, and the Pirates fans can relate to that because they hated Josh Van Meter. He is much worse than Josh Van Meter. But granted, this is where, like I said, I don't hate it. Like it makes sense in the sense of he is good defensively.
Yep.
He is good with the pitching staff. Like if there was one thing I wanted, it was certainly that. That's why like the Roberto Perez re-signing made like a lot of sense in that sense. But it's just so bad offensively. And here's the thing too I want to say. Everything comes down to roster construction. You know, like everything. You can hide a bad offensive catcher who comes with very, very good defense if you have a competent lineup. Say like the Indians, right?
Yeah.
You can get away with that because the pitchers will love the guy, right? But your offense isn't just straightly anemic. The Pirates don't have that. Like they already have the bad offense. It's not as if they can hide Austin Hedges in this lineup. It's already pretty brutal, and they made it worse. So again, granted, like the pitchers will love Austin Hedges probably. Now he's not the defensive wizard he once was, but the defense is still good, right?
Yeah.
So like I don't mind my catcher not being. I'll put it this way: I don't mind my catcher being offensively challenged, as long as he comes with the other stuff. Like the hidden things you don't really get to see. Like think about Yachty. Like Yachty Molina was pretty awful offensively for most of his career. Average to bad. But he was just so good defensively, and that's why he's going to be a Hall of Famer, right? That's fine. You can get away with that. Also, the Cardinals lineup, pretty damn good for a while. The Pirates have a bad lineup. Austin Hedges isn't like peak Yachty anymore, right? He's not peak Austin Hedges anymore. But like when you encompass everything, he's a negative WAR player still.
Well, and it's also like it's just straight up. It's like I want people to know this. Like it's not an improvement. over last year. Like Scott Heineman, Jason DeLay, and the 1 month of Roberto Perez put up better numbers than Austin Hedges did. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's offensively they did. And defensively, they were better as well. So the Pirates were a pretty solid defensive catching team last year. If we're going off of like Fangraphs numbers, which are, if I'm looking at catchers, they probably are the best there. But he got hit a 9.6 defensive rating in Cleveland last season. The Pirates last year, catchers, combined for
You're not going to go back to 2002
overall,
Marlins, are you?
It was 17.2. So Jason DeLay, Scott Heineman, Jose Godoy, Roberto Perez, the hodgepodge of all those catchers outproduced Austin Hedges last year. So I just want people to realize, yeah, he's good defensively. He's terrible offensively. His numbers are worse than those guys combined for last year.
Fair enough.
Like, this is a signing that they made. It's a person that they added to their team. But in no way does this make their team any better. It doesn't.
Fair enough. And again, going back to I don't hate the signing in that sense, but it's not one. This is like the absolute settle. And that's why, like the Roberto Perez, I felt the same way, but I was okay and comfortable with it. And mainly also, too, because like Endy Rodriguez is going to be coming up. You assume and expect Henry to come up at some point. So there's going to be a real situation. You're probably having 3 catchers on this team in the sense of what a catcher is and what can do. But did you say Scott Heineman?
I said Scott Heineman. It's 7:20 a.m.
Is Jeffrey Wilson going to be pitching to Scott Heineman this upcoming year?
So I think it's just, there is a Tyler Heineman. So keep that in mind. Like, Tyler Heineman exists. He's a baseball player.
Yes, he's on the Pirates. So you mean Scott now?
Scott Heineman. Yeah.
Oh,
well,
brother.
Scott Heineman also exists. Like, Scott Heineman is also a baseball player. So, like, he's a person.
There you go.
I just got him confused. All right. Going back. Hedges would be a if we had a comp, if Endy Rodriguez was our starting catcher, right? And we signed Austin Hedges as a backup, I'd like this move. So I guess this just kind of comes down to, like, this is going to be really crappy for 2.5 months. And then hopefully it improves a little bit once Endy's up, once Davis is up. Because I think as a backup catcher, like, Austin Hedges has a place in the major leagues because of his defensive value.
Oh, for sure.
But once you're giving Austin Hedges 300 plus plate appearances in a year, it's his offensive shortcomings start to add up to being worse than how good he is defensively. If you're limiting his playing time, though, perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of
and again, like, especially the way his defense is starting to deteriorate. Like, it's not what it once was, and that's why, right, it's not worth it. He's come to the point now where he's like this is my personal catcher. Like, Austin Hedges is Garrett Cole's personal catcher, and he's going to be pitching every time Garrett Cole's up there because he likes the way he works and defensively, but because the offense just 6 times a week, 5 times a week just hurts your team. And like, what I want to say to this too, and trust, like, this isn't me saying this is okay. It's just understanding the Endy situation and what it's going to be, and he's not going to be opening day. Like, I'm also okay with this in that sense. But I'm okay with it. Again, come like roster construction, like, I'm okay with it, understanding that the catcher position this year is going to be one that's going to be pretty anemic to start off, but it represents a guy who is essentially an Austin Hedges, who once Endy comes up and eventually Henry, like, he can show them the ropes. He has that leadership. You know what I mean? Like they're going to benefit a lot from Hedges, right? And the pitchers will also. But that's affordable if you invest in other places. That's where the Pirates are failing. Like I would be okay with this, not a problem at all, if they went out there and got maybe a corner outfielder who's not the person we're going to mention next. You know, if they the first base, I mean, that was an improvement, albeit it's limited, but we did appreciate the first base moves this year. Like that position did improve, but that was really it. Like all off season so far, it happened rather quickly. We both were like, "Hey, the Pirates, maybe Ben's doing something. Ben's cooking this off season," and then he was like, "Psych, rug pull."
Well, and like I
I'm
said,
not
he's
really doing much.
doing plenty of stuff. Like I would argue. I mean, so how many additions is this now to the major league roster? You had the 2 at first base, Velasquez, Garcia.
Well, Garcia's
Hedges.
not official, so we don't know yet.
Yeah. So I mean, we're now at least 6 major league roster additions. That might be tops in Major League Baseball. Like Ben Cherington might be doing more stuff right now than any other Major League GM.
But
it's,
as we're saying, after the first base position, what really helped that much? Go back to like what Alex Stump said. Maybe outside of Austin Hedges, every signing the Pirates got, air quotes, better, but the bar is absolutely terrible. Doesn't really say much.
Yeah. I wouldn't even argue they got better with Hedges, though. Like last
year.
Well,
outside of Hedges, because Hedges signing happened after Alex said that.
Yeah. But you're right. The other ones, well, Velasquez, if he was a reliever, makes the team better. Velasquez is a starter. I don't know if he does. But yeah, I mean, first base improved.
Thompson, Bryce Wilson's the bar again. He could,
first baseman improved. Yeah, it's and if we are seeing any improvements, it's so marginal. It's so marginal that it doesn't matter.
So here's a question, and this is something I put out there on Twitter because I certainly have some thoughts. Now, Seth says Roberto Perez starting winter ball soon. Actually, he has it. I think he's played 3 games total right now. Do you think they sign him if he is healthy? Interest on both sides? Because I've seen some people say that too. Like, well, maybe Austin Hedges doesn't mean they're done. Maybe he's just part, right? Maybe he will end up being the backup. Maybe they sign like a Roberto Perez because there's been interest. So I guess let's start there. Like, do you think Austin Hedges is it? And Tyler Heineman is going to essentially be the pseudo backup, or do you think they're going to like say, "Hey, we got Austin Hedges, $1.5 million, or it's 1 year, $5 million. Let's go get Roberto Perez on a 1 year, $3 million, whatever it is." And there's our tandem.
It's a good question. I'm gonna lean yes that there's going to be some interest there. And the reason is actually going from what Alex said, right? Like Alex was pretty, I guess direct in saying that like there is mutual interest there, between Perez and the Pirates.
To loosely quote him, he basically said he's their first, second, third, fourth, and fifth option.
Yeah. So that leads me to believe that, they may not be done here. And I do think they need to acquire one more person, because not only for just depth for those first couple months, right? Because I don't think they want to run into a situation they ran to last year with like Contreras, where someone got injured and they had to call Contreras up before Super 2 deadline. And then they had to do all this stupid stuff, like send them down to work on something and, pick something pretend out of the sky and send him down so they can manipulate his service time more. I don't think they don't want to get into a position where, one of the only 2 catchers on their team gets hurt. And it's like, well, if you don't call up Endy, then what are you really doing here? I think they'll add someone else. Yeah. And Heineman will be kind of like that third option, and they'll have two major league catchers. So I could see a Perez signing still happening.
So I'll put it this way. Everything you said makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
With a competent team leading towards a competent season, that makes sense. So I can't argue the logic behind any of that. But I'm really trying to think and put on my Ben Cherington sitting in my Pirates GM hat.
Mm.
And to me, I feel like this is it. They moved on. They pivoted for some reason or other. And that's what I want to talk maybe also, if that is the truth. For some reason or other, they pivoted and went Austin Hedges opposed to Roberto Perez, because I don't think you're going to sign 2 MLB contracts this year when you know ND for sure is coming up and likely Henry Davis. Because then you're probably not trading either of these guys. You could. I mean, I guess technically Michael Perez got traded last year. So I guess you could.
Catchers have value. Yeah.
But these also are going to come with a little more money, where Perez was just ARB eligible. No big deal. So, I mean, there's a little bit of a difference. But I don't really think they are. Think about the catching situation last year. We talked for how long that there was no catchers on the 40-man roster. And then spring came and they gobbled them all up. And I feel like Austin Hedges is going to be that guy. Heineman, like what you're saying about Heineman, I feel like he probably will be the backup once we're past everything and they can start putting people on the 60-day IL and such. So, this 40-man's not crunching. I think it's going to happen next year. Like in spring, they're going to be able to sign someone to a minor league deal or whatever, pick up that third catcher that you're talking of, so they don't have to put ND in that situation. I think this is it. And we'll find out. And I'm not going to go too deep into the next part. I'll go ahead.
What's funny is I think Tyler Heineman is a better catcher right now than Austin Hedges.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm being serious.
I don't know if that really is a hot take per se.
Yeah.
But that's where we are right now. And sure. Not that I particularly love Heineman, but
I mean, if you look at last season,
Austin
Tyler
Hedges
Heineman was substantially better than Austin Hedges last year.
Right. Yeah. So anyways, I think this is it. I think this is the starting catcher. Heineman ends up being the backup, probably, unless some other catching option becomes available for whatever reason. You know what I mean? That he wants to scoop up. But to me, then, if that is the answer, I'm very curious of why they pivoted from Roberto Perez to Austin Hedges, and solely because of Alex more or less confirming what we thought. Like it was basically a done deal. They probably just want to make sure he was healthy, and he just started the winter ball. Like he literally just started 3 games into it, and then that's when the signing happened. So if they did pivot, I'm very curious as to why that happened.
Yeah, I'd be curious there, and I guess we won't really find out for a while because until Roberto Perez signs with either the Pirates or somebody else, we won't really know.
Right. Okie dokie. What else do you want to talk about with Austin Hedges? Anything? Just with catching in general?
No, I mean, it just goes back to I'm still so upset they've just completely shut the door on ND starting opening day. But I mean, it's to be expected with this team. So it is what it is.
Yep. Okay. Well, then let's move on. So that happened. That started off the weekend. Last night we got some news. The Pirates, they brought back their former first rounder, Connor Joe, who went to the Rockies. I mean, as much as a Pirates acquisition can be controversial, right? In a Connor Joe trade, kind of controversial. Kind of, I like this. He's good, and then also he's bad, terrible. I guess, what do we make of Connor Joe? How do you feel about this trade? I'll ask that first.
So I was hoping that they would go out there and get a right-handed hitting corner outfielder. I am happy that they addressed that because I think they needed to.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked them to have gone about it maybe another way, or pick somebody who, I don't know, maybe has a little bit of power, or someone who can hit lefties really well. Connor Joe is an interesting case because, I mean, first off, he took a while to get to the majors.
Mm-hmm.
He played pretty okay. He played pretty good. Let's say he played pretty good in his first real taste of Major League Ball in 2021.
Right.
above average hitter, okay fielder. Peripherals all looked fine. Doesn't strike out a lot. Walks, gets on base. So he's he's a major league player at this point. I don't think he's necessarily a very good one. Like, I think he's a complimentary guy, someone who maybe you want to give 300, 400 plate appearances to. Like, he's not going to be like an everyday guy. You saw that last year where he got, more playing time than he's ever gotten in his career. And, he was well below average, which if all you're doing is playing left field, right field, first base, or DHing, you can't be a below average hitter in Major League Baseball. Like, that's just, you can't. Last year, I think he was another stat here. 81 outfielders had 400 plate appearances last year. Connor Joe ranked 71st out of those 81. So we're still talking about somebody near the end, the bottom of a list like that. Like I said, they addressed the right-handed corner outfielder. I would like to have seen better, like, lefty split numbers. Hit pretty well against them in 2021, but did not hit well against them last year. I don't know. I mean, it's fine, right? Like, it's one of those, like, sure, whatever. It's something they needed, but it's not necessarily a good player type of deal. Like, if you wanted a right-handed Ben Gamel, you got one.
That's probably the best way of putting it, because like, Ben Gamel is basically a major leaguer, right? He belongs in the majors. That's why he was there on the Pirates last year. He might be on the downside. Like, he might be picking up a minor league deal this offseason. Maybe a major league, we'll find out. But he's very limited. He's about a league average bat. Defense is below average, even though he's making all those diving plays. It's just because he wasn't that competent to get there without diving. But anyways, regardless, like, that's probably a good comp of putting it. And again, that's where this stinks. The trade itself, it's not a bad trade. Like, I don't hate the trade. I don't hate it. They
not a bad trade. Yeah,
basically nothing. It was who was it?
I do
Nick Garcia.
I like Nick Garcia, but he is pretty far down the depth chart in minor league pitching. But whenever you accumulate a lot of minor league talent like that, you can kind of afford to move some of those depth guys when you need a major league piece. So that's what they did.
Right. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Nick Garcia is not going to be a loss for this organization. You're not going to miss him. There's 10 others in this. Well,
there are a lot of other Nick Garcia-like pitchers in this organization.
Right. So it's no loss. So it's an addition of a need. It's just, how much does that need push this needle? And you making the Ben Gamel comp pretty much nails it. It doesn't. You're basically where you were last year. You have Ben Gamel. Maybe there's more upside to this. That's what I'll say, but I'm not hopeful that the upside will be there. We're talking about the lefties, right? Like, he was about league average last year against lefties. The year before, he just annihilated lefties. But the year before was like his first. Okay, I think it was like a 136 weighted runs created plus against lefties in 2021.
Yeah,
like 36% better than average. I mean, that's
130,
good.
I think is what it was.
130. Either way, it was good.
Worse than Kevin Newman was last year, by the way.
Okay. So, but he slugged. Now, he was in Colorado for most of it, and also last year, just 211 plate appearances in total for the Rockies. His first real taste of the majors. Like, I'm not sure. Like, here's where it's interesting to me, because again, when he came to the Rockies and he had that 2021 season, it was like, oh God, here we go. Even Connor Joe's showing up as, look at the Pirates, how they fumbled this, right? Even Connor Joe's out here slugging 469 at age 28, with the Rockies' is call up. But the difference was, now his first full season, he had an 87 weighted runs created plus last year. Basically league average against lefties. I don't know if that was his first taste. Now pitchers have kind of figured him out, so he's not that good. But here's the thing too. He hits nothing but fastballs. he cannot hit a breaking ball. He can't hit anything other than a fastball, basically. Last year, he did annihilate fastballs last year. This year wasn't bad. I mean, his batting average against the fastball is like 276, like it's above average, but I'm not expecting much. Maybe he bounces back a little bit. Maybe against, like you said, the platoon, he's about league average, and that's okay. But it's a league average hitter, which, to your credit, it's Ben Gamble.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think like, a right-handed Ben Gamble is pretty much what we got here. So again, is it somebody who would get meaningful playing time on a good baseball team? Nope. But he's here, and he'll probably play a pretty substantial part in this offense, I would imagine. Yeah, I saw that comment, and I think that's another thing that kind of confused me here is this is very Andujar and Connor Joe I think are probably pretty similar profiles where Andujar is not playing third base, right? So if Andujar is going to play, it's going to be either corner, outfield, first base, or DH. Like that's where he's going to play. Connor Joe is going to play corner, outfield, first base, or DH. Not going to play anywhere else. So they are going to be pretty. They're going to be competing for playing time. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like those two are going to be absolutely competing for playing time. So I kind of like the deal in that regard, but I also would have liked to have brought in like a more of a righty power bat for the corner outfield. I think is kind of what I was hoping would happen. So that's why I'm a little disappointed here. I do think Connor Joe is better than Miguel Andujar. So, if we're saying like Miguel Andujar was going to get a starting spot in this lineup, then they improved on that with this deal. Like Connor Joe is a better player than Miguel Andujar.
Yeah, I think you could. I think he's definitely safer for one. I mean, the reason that Andujar is intriguing is the potential ceiling. Now, the potential is very risky. I think you're not going to get it right, but we know like what he's capable of, and Connor Joe is not capable of that. Neither of us think that he's going to be able to get there. But Andujar certainly has like the ceiling, but Connor Joe is a Major League Baseball player where I think a lot of us aren't sure if Andujar even is anymore.
Yeah.
So
Andujar
he's definitely safe. I will say, what's that?
Andujar hasn't been a Major League Baseball player since before Austin Hedges hit over 50 weighted runs created plus.
There you go. That's our next measuring stick for Andujar. But like, yeah, like this is certainly to me, like now Andujar has some competition for one.
Yeah.
You don't just pencil him in there. But I was like even thinking long term because he plays outfield, also plays first base. And you got to think the way the Pirates operate. So they're probably going to be trading Santana, Choi, right? Looking to do that and such. And he can play first base. So this is also maybe some of, once that happens, we're not going to have our situation we did last year. Connor Joe can play first base. So once we lose those two, here you go, Connor Joe. The thing with that is you would maybe hopefully expect Malcolm Nunez to be ready. He's also righty. His
and
splits
Henry
are the
David.
same.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay. Henry, I guess, is that possibility as well. Yeah. But yeah, look at this too. Like, okay, so he also plays first. So maybe they're hedging a little bit here. They also have a guy who can play first base when that happens. Connor Joe also has two options. So this isn't also meaning that Connor Joe has to stay on the team. Like he could be in AAA to start the year. So like, again, with all this said, I don't hate this, but it just isn't pushing the needle where you're really wanting to see this offseason be pushed at.
Yeah. No, and listen, it's addressing an area where I thought they needed to add somebody, but it's just like not addressing it in a way where we're going to see it affect this team.
Yeah.
It's just kind of more of the same that we've been seeing this offseason. Like I said, the first base additions were like a meaningful addition, but I think that just more had to do with you add anybody competent and it's going to be a meaningful addition because that position was so bad.
But they've actually spent money on it. They did shore up. They spent money. They got leadership.
Yeah.
I like the first base.
I like what they did at first base.
That was it.
But yeah, this is just like another sign. It's not a signing. It's an acquisition, right? And there's no reason to like get upset about this deal. Like I don't think anybody's upset about it. I don't know if there's any reason to get excited about it though. Like it's
No, you're right.
yeah, it's a
And that's
guy.
the thing, like
He's a
the
guy.
trade itself in a vacuum,
Mhm.
you can't get upset about. But I think what you can look at is just encompass everything. Look at the direction this entire offseason has gone, and you can just like I don't think upset's the right word either, but you can just be disappointed in this is where they're going. Like these are the moves. After you kept hearing offseason after offseason after offseason about how they're much closer, right? And you hear this offseason how we're going to focus on the major league team, you know, all that, and you see the first two moves, and that made you feel like they were onto something. Seeing everything afterwards just kind of disappoints you. That's the best acquisitions you're probably going to see, and we're not even sure if Brian Reynolds is going to be on the team or not yet.
Well, I mean that's that's the big thing here, right? Like if Brian Reynolds ends up getting traded, then you got worse. Unless you're getting, major league ready talent that is good.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we're going to operate Brian Reynolds on the team, but
yeah,
you just don't know. Regardless,
yeah,
he requested a trade. That's
I
not how you
think
want to
they.
start the offseason either.
I've said it a couple times. I don't think he gets moved this offseason, but yeah, if he does, there better be some stuff coming back in that one that can kind of slide in right away.
Right. Okie dokie. So Miguel Andujar, Connor Joe, maybe duking it out. Do you see a situation where they're both on the team?
Yeah, I do. I think it adds a little bit more depth to the outfield too. So now I think what it does do is maybe Cal Mitchell. It pushes one of those guys off. Whereas before maybe you were having a roster of both Sawinski and Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got to pick one of those guys. Because as much as I've downplayed the addition of Connor Joe, I think he's better than Cal Mitchell. I think he's better than Miguel Andujar. So, and I don't think the Pirates are ready to give up on Andujar, right? So
No.
I think regardless, like, and barring a spring where he goes like 1 for 43 or something, like Miguel Andujar is going to be on this team. So yeah, I could see. I think this pushes though. This pushes Cal Mitchell maybe off the major league roster, or maybe even no, Bay probably is going to be in there for his infield, but yeah, I think they both can be on the roster. Yeah.
Cool. Seth has a question about Canaan Smith-Njigba, and that's what I thought too. Now the difference is he's a lefty. But Connor Joe just kind of adds to, I guess, the hodgepodge of like these outfielders. Like there's no real outfielders that stand out. Like even Smith-Njigba, I have some hope for him. I think he has some promise right now. He's a lefty, and that's why he's different here. I don't think this signing really attacks his roster spot per se, but there's just a lot of outfielders, a lot of guys, no dudes.
There's a lot of guys here. Yeah, I mean, if we're just talking about outfield, outside of Reynolds, you assume Reynolds and Sawinski are safe,
Right?
I would imagine, right? But then you got Andujar, Connor Joe's being added to this, Tugapita Marcano, infielder, outfielder, Cal Mitchell, Canaan Smith-Njigba, Travis Swaggerty still on this team. Like, I could see him getting pushed out here soon just because I don't know if they like him very much. And then Ryan Valade's still sitting there. Like, what is,
God, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So the Pirates have acquired 2 Colorado Rocky righty corner outfielders this offseason between Valade and Joe.
Yeah. That's, and we don't have to talk too deep about this because we're talking about these guys, but that's what I want to bring up. Like you mentioned Cal Mitchell, which makes sense too. But when you look at last year, they really didn't give Swaggerty a shot at all. It was Cal Mitchell who they did and brought back. So like, I wonder if it's potentially Swaggerty that really is on the chopping block more than Cal Mitchell. Swaggerty can play center field, plays it very well. So maybe that's a difference. Like this doesn't really attack Swaggerty much in that sense, but like you look at the pecking order of outfielders, they chose Cal Mitchell over Swaggerty last year.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I was talking more of just the major league roster. But I mean, they still need to do a couple things here. Like they need to make a corresponding move for Garcia.
I was looking at more to 40 man.
Yeah, so they need to make a corresponding move for Garcia, and I think is that the only corresponding move they need to make, right? Oh, they need to make one for Hedges
now, right?
Well, no, they DFA'd Nick Mears.
Oh, that's right.
This for Connor Joe.
Yes.
But they need to DFA somebody. They need to get rid of somebody for Hedges. They need to get rid of somebody for Garcia. So there's 2 spots there on this 40 man that they got to let somebody go. And you got to think right now, like there's the pitching staff, Johan Ramirez is still there. He was a guy that we kind of talked about this whole offseason as someone who maybe not long for this team. So he's on the 40 man. I don't think any infielders are going anywhere for the time being, but if you're looking at outfield, Valade, Swaggerty, I think are kind of both on the chopping block there potentially to get DFA'd. So we'll see what happens with these moves.
There you go. All right. Well, how much more can you talk on a morning podcast about Austin Hedges and Connor Joe? Have we reached that limit?
I think we're there. I think a lot of people were getting mad at me last night for like poo-pooing on this. And I wasn't poo-pooing on it. Like I said on there, like my assessment of the trade was sure, whatever. So like, I don't know. That's not negative. It's just like, whatever,
I feel like your perception on Twitter, and I'm not going to say it's like totally changed because like you've been, but like it's clear. You hate the Pirates and people hate you for hating the Pirates.
Well, like I don't hate.
But then you come on here and you talk and explain it and rationalize it, right? But it's like on Twitter, you're that dude, and I love it.
No, I mean I love the Pirates, right? But they are annoying in that like they're doing all this stuff and none of it's actually helping. Like I want good baseball players on my team. That's what it comes down to. And Austin Hedges and Connor Joe are not good baseball players. Like we spent 40 minutes this morning talking about them and like how they're going to fit into this team. Neither of them are good baseball players. And like I want to get to the point where we're talking about the Pirates having good baseball players. So like I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Connor Joe's a good baseball player. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Austin Hedges is a good baseball player. These are guys who are brought onto a team that isn't trying to win. Like if you do not go out and acquire these 2 players if you are trying to win baseball games. These aren't players who are going to help you win.
See, I just want to say in a sense, like that's not really a true statement in my eyes. It still just comes down to roster construction. Like you can sign an Austin Hedges you're trying to win if he's your backup catcher. Okay. You can sign Connor Joe. Like if it's like, we can get away. He can be this utility guy. We need to go cheap here because we spent here. Like we're still a competent baseball team. Like if Connor Joe ended up being on the Yankees for some stupid reason, like, okay, it could happen, but they can afford and fit that. Like I don't like that statement in itself, but that's not what the Pirates are doing. That's why these aren't good moves. Right.
Connor Joe is going to get over 300 plate appearances this year, and he shouldn't.
Right.
Austin Hedges is going to get a lot of playing time this year.
And
he should.
He might be the 5th batter in that lineup when he does.
Connor Joe.
Not 8th.
Yeah. We saw Ben Gamble back
coming at
last year.
Right. Yeah. Like that's the thing. Like if you were in the Yankees, you'd be batting 8th and you can hide him, whatever. But he's batting 5th for the Pirates.
Yeah.
And last year he slugged .359.
No, that's all my thing is like don't like nice nice trade, solid. He's going to be solid. No, what is your definition of solid? Like a corner outfielder who's a league average hitter isn't solid. A corner outfielder, a league average hitter, is a bad baseball player. Like they're a bad baseball player. Like it's not like I'm just trying to tell you that Connor Joe is bad. That's all. And like don't try to paint this picture that he's not, because he's bad. It's like he's a bad baseball player. He should not be getting any substantial playing time for any team who's trying to win baseball games. That's essentially what it comes down to. And the same goes for Austin Hedges. He's a bad baseball player. They're bad baseball players. And this is a bad team.
Put Connor Joe's entire baseball career out there. 182 games, 694 plate appearances, to 92 weighted run created plus, 0.9 WAR.
It's a bad baseball player.
There does have to be a time when Pirates fans need to stop justifying. That's when you know you got a good player. And again, like not all trades can be that way. Not all signings can be that way. Like there's going to be somewhere like, I can understand this, but like every acquisition the Pirates make has to be justified. And that kind of just shows that, well, they're not good players. Like, well, he can be good if he bats against lefties only. And he does this. And it's like, you got to get past this at some point. You got to say, oh, they signed this player. Mm-hmm. He's good.
Yeah.
Because you know he's good.
If you're citing lefty splits from 2 seasons ago, it means he's not a good baseball player.
Right.
Cite something else.
I'm with you. And again, it's like it's not take like that is legit. That is what he did, and I understand it, but like that's every move. Every move you have to justify it. The Pirates need to stop justifying moves. They need to just go out there and make a move, get better. And it should have started last year, and it started this year finally. Like, although you had to justify Troy, and Santana degree, but we're more on board with it. There's a better understanding of it. But like, there has to be a time where they start saying, "Hey," we don't talk about we don't have to go to the Dansby situation, but the Cubs went out there and signed Dansby 7 years. You don't have to say, "Well, Dansby could be good." No, he's good.
Right.
They're not they're not a good team. They're a air quotes rebuilding team as well. You got to start pushing.
There are plenty of players out there getting signed where you don't have to dig deep. You don't have to click multiple buttons on their Fangraphs page to find a stat that you like.
Right.
If you're clicking multiple buttons, if you have to click multiple buttons on their Fangraphs page to see if you like somebody or not, then they're bad.
That's the I like that. How many buttons you have to click to determine if it's solid or not?
Yeah.
We need to come up with some
over
some
under
degree,
1.5
some level.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get out of here then. But yeah, I mean the Pirates made some moves. Whatevs, I guess.
Yeah, now this week the 2 big things that they need to do is they need to get rid of 2 guys.
Yeah.
So that should be coming up, I would imagine, this week. Well, who are your guesses? Quick guesses.
Man, I don't even know. I'm not even going to do it because I'm not looking right now.
I'm going to say Ryan Vilade and Johan Ramirez.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just not. The reason I'm not, you want to know why I'm not, it's not even so much I'm looking at that. It's because Vilade is the one that makes sense. Vilade's the one I've been talking about, and it's not going to be Vilade. Vilade's still going to be on this team. He is absolutely going to be on this team. And Vilade's I don't understand it.
Leader. He's just going to keep surviving.
I don't understand it. Just like Van Meter. I didn't understand the pickup when it happened. And him still being on the team, I don't understand. Not that the guys they got rid of, it's like, oh my God, how could you DFA this guy? How can you remove that guy from the 40-man? It's just, how could you remove that guy and not this guy? Why did you acquire Valade? Okay, I'm moving on. That's more egregious than these two moves. Ryan Valade, not even playing for the Pirates, but being on the 40-man is more egregious than these two moves of Hedges and Connor Joe. I'm done. Now I'm pissed. It better be Valade.
I think he'll be one. I think he'll be one of them.
All right. Sounds good. Can we leave now? I need some coffee.
We can leave now, yeah.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll be back again this week, I guess. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
See you guys.